In the last 5 years, we have engaged in a special panel, which is the business of science, kind of moving it to the entrepreneurial, to the business of science. Where is Eric? Come in. While Eric is coming, one of the first guests 5 years ago was Eric Tokat. But since then, he was elevated to become co-president of investment banking at Centerview and the founder of the healthcare program there. Anybody who follows the biotech deals will probably understand, actually in the last 15 years, is following Eric's deals. Biohaven to Pfizer, Ray's Bio to BMS, Fusion, AstraZeneca, MorphoSys to Novartis, and dozens more. So I think you have quite a unique panel here of somebody who is selling more than anybody in the world in biotech, and somebody who is buying more than anybody in the world in biotech. So I was so pleased to introduce them yesterday face to face. But this is where we have a panel, and I'm very excited to be with them today on the panel. Actually, what I will not say, but what AI says, and Eric, you will have to tell me, that Eric has done more $1 billion sales than every other banking in the world combined. Goldman, JP Morgan, anybody. So we'll get to that. But you get the scope of the activities that's going between these two guys who are sitting there on the panel. So I'm sure on the panel there are some groups that are saying, wow, I'm so intrigued by the science, how a scientist becomes where he becomes. But at the other side, there is somebody who started in 2009 as a, in a banking office and became the biggest healthcare banking guy in history. And the question is, the first question to you guys, because we need to start somewhere, is, Eric, how do you become Eric? And Dan, how do you become a Dan? Did you plan, your parents said, that's what you're doing? Or I know we have only 30 minutes here, so don't take all the 30 minutes, but shortly, how did you do that?
Okay, first of all, thank you very much, Arie. Always too generous, and I'm very honored to be here. As you said, 5 years ago, I was here, and I'm very happy, and I'm honored to be with Dan sharing a podium as well. Impressive talk, obviously, and impressive work. One deal that you forgot about me, though, that I'm most proud of is Kite Gilead. That's very important in my career, and it was very, very critical. So how did I become Eric? By gaining...
We paid you the most.
You did.
I know.
Yeah, if someone's looking for a cheaper fee, they should look elsewhere. That is for sure. But hopefully that was helpful. So that's a very, very important deal. Look, I think the reality is, and before I start that, I also want to commend and congratulate Dan on incredible success. I think it's really important. I'm a banker, so I speak in financial terms. So Dan joined, I just looked it up, Dan joined Lilly and then became head of R&D in June 1, 2018. And Lilly share price was $84. Today, Lilly share price is $1,050. That's 12x. Market cap from 100 billion to $1 trillion. So we really need to commend Dan and his leadership, because none of this happens without R&D leadership. Because pharma, our ecosystem is all about innovation. So if innovation doesn't happen, nothing happens. I was reading the mission statement there, which is very impressive. I actually even took a picture of it, because this actually lays out very nicely our industry. Do things, innovation that benefits the patient, then creates value, economic value. Then that economic value comes back to do more innovation. So that's where M&A comes in, right, in a way. So, as Dan also said, there's this capital needs to flow and be reinvested. And all of this great work that benefits the patients basically comes back through M&A. And I've been, so coming back to your question, I've been sort of taking an approach to be a thought partner to the industry, quite frankly. Thought partner to the ecosystem. I've never approached any one of my situations as a banker, okay, this is a transaction I need to do and get it done. Never that way. I actually was always trying to do the right thing. What is the right thing for all of the stakeholders involved? And it always works out very, very well. You know, I very much prioritize all of the parties involved, whether it's the target, whether it's the acquirer, whether the management team, and eventually the patients are satisfied with the outcome of every action we take. And I think when you take this approach, everything really follows. If you do the right thing, I think life works in a way that you benefit from it and you become successful. So always thinking that has made, I think, some difference. And I just want to also give a lot of credit to my colleagues at Centerview. So obviously we've been very fortunate to be at this epicenter of a lot of the deal making. So it's not just Eric. I think it's a lot of us work very hard together in the ecosystem. We cover more than any other biotechnology and pharmaceutical companies in the world. And our group is the largest group, actually, in terms of headcount, not just in terms of the deals we do or the dollars of revenues we generate, but also in terms of the headcount. We are very, very large, and we're only exclusively focused on strategic advisory. So that's what obviously makes a difference. So anyway, in a nutshell, that's how I'd respond to your question.
Dan, how do you become it, Dan?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a desirable state, but thanks for the question. And Eric, an honor to share this stage with you, and congratulations on your success. $1 billion here and $1 billion there, and it adds up after a while. Look, I've always just been passionate about science. I'm a curious person. Probably everyone is born curious, and some people, I guess, lose it over time, but I haven't, and I just love science as a way of answering curiosity questions. I probably could have been equally happy going into any field of science, astrophysics or whatever. I'm not smart enough to do that probably, but any field of science would have been interesting. And then in college, I discovered wow, molecular biology, that we can use science to make medicines to help people at their most desperate point in their life feel better. That seemed to me like the best application of science there is. And so I decided to go into biomedical science and research. And then I kind of spent some time in academia and discovered, as many probably people in this audience do, the frustrations with the timelines and challenges of grant funding, and sometimes the slower than desired pace of progress in academia, and not knowing much about biotech, said, well, it would be much faster and easier if I started a biotech company. I'm glad I didn't know how hard it would be, but it worked out okay. And that was really the start of my own journey, driven by a passion for the science and translating that science into something that could matter for patients, in my case, in Alzheimer's.
What I didn't mention is that what's unique, thank you, just on Eric's side, that what Eric is mostly doing is representing the side of the company. So he is actually your guy. And therefore, that's where he really tries to give the maximum to his clients. And once you're a client, you continue with him over the years. We started 17 years ago with him with the first company, then the second company, then just last year we worked with him on Scorpion to send to Lilly, to sold to Lilly, Capstan to AbbVie, then just a few months ago Halda to J&J. All of these companies, he represents the company itself, the founders, the PhD scientists who are starting with the company, and that's the trust that you gain. Eric, maybe you can give us just a very quick brief, what to expect in the rest of 26, 27. We know that Eli Lilly will probably continue to buy and create the buzz, but there is other world. There's Lilly and there's the world. So how do you see the market in 26, 27?
Sure. First of all, I would say that Eli Lilly has been very, very prolific in deal making, particularly in the last couple of years. I think just to kind of give you some stat, in the last sort of 2.5 or so years, or 3 years, Lilly done about $10 billion plus deals. And when you think about the rest of the group, of the pharmaceutical group, that's sort of about, call it 15 people that are greater than $100 billion in market cap. The median is about 4. So this year, for instance, we've seen 20 deals so far, greater than $1 billion. And to put that in perspective, the record year in our industry, full year, is 26 deals, and that was last year.
Wow.
And typically it's about sort of last 5 years, it's been about 20 deals average, last 5 years. Prior to 5 years, average was about 12, 13 deals a year. So last quarter of last year, okay, to kind of put everything in perspective, last quarter of last year was 14 deals greater than $1 billion. So that of that 26 deals, 14 of them happened in the last quarter of the year. This year, first 4 months, we had 20. So when you add essentially 2 quarters in a month, that's 34 deals. That's already from a 2 month plus two quarters plus a month, we're like in a very different territory.
Is it going to continue?
I think it will continue. It will continue. I think the demand is there and supply is there. It's always a classic macroeconomics, right? There needs to be demand, but there needs to be supply. So if you don't have supply and demand doesn't mean anything. So we have enough supply. What does that mean? We have enough incredible innovation happening. Initially came all out of sort of the universities like UCLA, incredible scientists doing amazing work. And Dan obviously walked through the evolution of the sciences over the course of history. And the pace of that innovation is just so different today than 10 years ago, 20 years ago. So a lot of the, based on all of the understanding of the underlying biology and all these different modalities, are creating a lot of new companies, right? I mean, in vivo CAR was sort of a thought maybe a few years ago. Today, it's real and activity is there. All of a sudden, we've seen about 5 deals in vivo CAR in the last 12 months, as an example. So supply is there and the demand is there. And quite frankly, and I think Dan said about 70% internal, 30% external R&D. I think that's sort of the base, though, in terms of the need is growing for each pharma, because take Lilly as example. Lilly will have hundreds of billions of dollars of revenues, and then there's going to be a point where there's going to be some patent issues, and the patent will go off, and so those revenues need to be replaced.
So is it a healthy growth or a desperation growth?
I think it is a healthy growth. But it is a thoughtful growth. I think the pharma executives today, again, Dan should speak to it, obviously, is realizing that, if there's great science elsewhere, in the past we had this, or at least as bankers were thinking, not invented here syndrome, which is like if it's not invented at the pharma, they're not as interesting, and they find all these excuses and so on and so forth. That was the perception. I think we're starting to see a change because amazing science is happening. Externally also. So I think our pharma executives are more open-minded to get the best innovation internally, in-house, and then they still do the development, right? So we have a lot of the deals, as an example, Dan is doing, at least as of in the last couple of years, have been earlier stage assets, because the sooner they bring in the assets internally, the sooner they could shape it, change it, and create other use for it, and so we're seeing all of that very healthily. There is this great open-mindedness to bring assets from external and make it part of their own pipeline. And oh, by the way, if they may be working on the same exact thing, but if they realize that what's happening elsewhere as a small biotech is doing a good job, I don't think there is the arrogance anymore of, okay, we will bring it and do it. And I think that's sort of an important change, which is driving a lot of this activity. So the need is there because the revenues need to be replaced as they go off patent. That's the beauty and the curse of our industry, if you will. But then there's a lot of open-mindedness and cash. I mean, there's a massive cash flow happening. Lilly or Lilly's peers, and that cash flow needs to be used, and you can do so much internally. So bringing molecules from outside has become a very, very core strategy for pharmas. But Dan, I'm sure, will add to it.
Yeah, I think it's hard to disagree with anything you said, Eric. And I just kind of point out for us, there's a question of scale. I don't know how to scale an R&D enterprise to be much larger than we are. It hasn't worked in the past, actually. Scientists don't thrive in bureaucracies. We have 10,000 scientists and drug developers at Lilly, and we spend, I don't know, $12 to $15 billion a year on R&D. Those are huge numbers. Could we efficiently double that or do 10x that? I'm not sure. And so one way that we can scale our output for the benefit of patients is through external innovation, acquiring companies. I don't think there's ever been, there has never been a better time for biotechnology innovation. I mean, it's just incredible the tools we have to address human suffering, and there's no shortage of human suffering to address. So the conditions are perfect. This is the golden age of innovation. I think the challenge and the threat, and to your question, like, will this last, comes to the other side of the ecosystem. Will people continue to value health? Will governments, payers, people want to invest in their own health or pay for drugs? If that changes, then the whole thing will stop, despite the science being incredible and the potential to stop suffering being incredible. So that's kind of the threat I focus on.
Just before we're moving to others, I would question, I have this slide that we are showing in every presentation on the patent cliff, 450 billion in the next several years. Is the patent cliff really a problem, or there is something different? You remember in Zytiga, Amgen didn't want to buy it here in our backyard because they said, the patent cliff, the patent expiring in about 4 years or 5 years, we don't want to buy it. 15 years later, with, $20 billion from J&J, somehow they managed to do that. So is it a real patent issue, patent cliff, or that's a fact, but there are around the facts some ways around it?
Yeah, so I'll take a stab at it, and I'm sure Dan will provide the company perspective. Patents are important in our industry. I mean, you have to protect, because a lot of investment goes into making an asset. I mean, between the amount of effort and the risk the investors take or the companies take from ideation to development candidate to actually bringing that to market is just so vast that I don't think there's any other industry that is comparable to that. Therefore, you need certain time frame protection so that the generics doesn't come to market and do cheaper versions, or others don't compete with you. So that's very natural, required, needed. I do have, though, slightly different take personally. This is a personal view, not many people share. I do think the importance of the length of the patent actually are declining over time. And so historically, and that's why people made a lot of issues with the IRA and 9 years versus 13, et cetera, et cetera. And my rationale was a bit contrarian in that I said, obviously, it's great to have 17 years. But my hunch is, in 17 years, that's the only drug in the market still, we're doing something wrong in our industry. So my guess is there's going to be a lot of competition that will be better drugs. Like, again, Dan correctly and I think very eloquently mentioned about the amylin being twice daily injection. How many people does that or are even willing to do that? Whereas now we moved into orals. So if you still had amylin's patent today, how valuable that could be? Zero. No one would use it. So therefore, my view is it's just sort of, you need certain time frame for sure. But I think, that the duration of it, I think the marketplace, the competition will dictate that new drugs will come to market and will cannibalize the existing one anyways. But it is important. I think people do care about it a lot. I mean,
Dan?
Yeah, no, patents are extremely important for a number of reasons. But the kind of the end of the patent life focus that used to dominate our industry, I hope actually is going away for the same reason you just said. About 10 years ago, we elucidated a strategy which posited that The key challenge for us as a company will not be patent cliffs. It will be technical obsolescence. In other words, someone will invent a better medicine. And what was our response to that kind of realization or prediction? We should be the ones who invent the better medicine. And that was kind of anathema in the industry, was don't cannibalize your own products, wait until the end of the patent life before you worry about making something better. We said, no, we're going to try and do it as quickly as possible. And you've just seen from us like generation after generation of drug for Alzheimer's or for diabetes and obesity. That's what patients need and want, and that's what we'll do.
Well, we have talked about 20 minutes, and we didn't, for once, said the word AI. So, Dan, you just didn't talk about it. You really acted on it. $1 billion NVIDIA co-innovation lab, $2.75 billion in silico deal. And so on and so forth, and other, not to mention all of that, but it's a portfolio across modeling, chemistry, structure, RNA. So it's not just AI, it's everything around. Maybe you can mention to us what's happening at Eli Lilly with AI.
Yeah, thanks. It's my New Year's resolution to speak about AI to audiences every single day of the year. So to check off today. Honestly, it's such an important tool. It's already part of every step in drug discovery and drug development at Lilly. And kind of asking what's the impact of AI is sort of like asking what's the impact of personal computers. There's no going back, and there won't be any business process that doesn't rely on AI to be better and more efficient and more productive, for sure. I think, though, there's kind of a higher order question, which is, are there problems we can solve today because of AI that were unsolvable in the past? And I think that might be the case. There actually aren't concrete examples yet. I recently was at a meeting with all of my peers, the heads of R&D at all the major companies. I said, what molecules do you have in your clinical pipeline that you're excited about that you wouldn't have if you never had AI? And it's silence. There are none yet. But that probably will change. And just like other tools, X-ray crystallography or transgenic mice or cryo-EM, or, those tools are integral to how we discover drugs. So will AI. So our chemists and our protein engineers use AI every day to help inspire them to synthesize the next good idea. We're nowhere near the stage, though, where we type in the name of a disease and AI says the target and here's the molecule. I know you can read a lot about that idea, but it's still a dream. But what we do have today is a tool that can help us do the activities. Does that mean drug development's going to get a lot faster and a lot cheaper? I don't think so. It just means we're going to reach for higher hanging fruit, things that we thought were undruggable in the past. Now, with 10 years of investment and billions of dollars, we'll be able to reach because of AI. That's necessary because the easy problems, by the way, have been solved. So we're constantly reaching for higher things, and AI will be the tool to do it. We're also trying to democratize AI, as I said before, because there's this huge disconnect between the people who have like the compute and the expertise to write the algorithms and the people who have the data in life sciences. Generally, the people who have the data are large pharma companies like us who've been at it for decades and have generated, data sets on millions of compounds that can be used to train AI models. And so we're working with some of the largest AI companies in the world, creating these models that are trained on our data set, and then in a federated way, so people can't see our data and we can't see their data, we're letting them plug into those models to make drug discovery work better for everyone.
Okay. Eric, in your travels around the world, and by the way, thanks so much for cutting your travel last night and coming straight from Barcelona, where you ran another conference there. But in your travels, what's the next wave? We have been to the wave of radiopharma, ADC, cell therapy, obesity. What's in your mind? What's next? What's the next wave?
I think Dan's slide had it. I mean, I think one thing that Dan said, I'll repeat, which is very important, investing today in what sort of hot isn't going to get you, the immediate outcome. I think you think about what's happening in the next 10 years, and I think there is a lot of, I would say immunology is an area that I think still has a ton to go. Scalability of some of the medicines, and that's why sort of maybe in vivo is very special and unique. I think we're going to see more. I do see that as sort of an earlier innings of that work. So there's a lot of talk and interest around that. Obviously with the work Lilly pioneered around broader cardiometabolic, that's another area. I think there is still a lot to do, and people continue to be interested in that. Again, if you just think about how deals work, as you said, right? I mean, we didn't have radiopharma deal forever, and then in 1 year we had like 4, and we didn't have any ADC deals, and all of a sudden in 1 year we had like 6 and things like that. So it does happen in a way. So today, in the last 2 years, again, we see a lot of activity around cardiometabolic. I think that's going to continue. But my personal, like, if I were to kind of say, what's the holy grail and where we're going to see a ton of excitement is neuroscience. I think neuroscience is still early, but I think great work is happening. Some capital is going there, and I think we're going to see, some activity on that in the coming years. I would say is an important area. But then we'll be better to answer this question.
Okay. Then neuroscience.
Yeah,
immunology.
I love both of those areas. Probably from a therapeutic area, I would pick neuroscience also. It's actually the area that we have the most unmet need and kind of proportionally the least investment in because it's hard and there's been so much failure. So we've stuck it out in neurodegenerative disease, but also in pain, also now working in addiction. Addiction is a horrible disease that usually we just blame the patient for, but we can change that with better medicines, and I think that's possible. I think we're entering a new era for psychiatry, although there's been little progress actually since like that slide I showed you from the 80s. There haven't been huge leaps made, but maybe this is the time to start. So I like that. Sleep and wakefulness. That everybody eats, everybody sleeps. Most people complain about both. Not always in the form of a disease, but can we make people healthier by sleeping better or eating better? Sure. So we're interested in that. Those aren't kind of popular ideas in pharma, but we're investing behind all of them. In terms of technologies, also, then I would say that in vivo cell programming is such an exciting area, and Arie, of course, pioneer in the field in many different ways. And CAR Ts just are so impressive, and Lilly never entered ex vivo cell therapy for cancer or for immunology, not because we weren't impressed with the remarkable cures it can offer patients, but because we see ourselves as a global company that wants to offer solutions that people everywhere in the world can access kind of cheaply and commonly. And ex vivo cell therapy didn't look to us like that would happen. We could be wrong. In vivo cell therapy, these are things that can actually be produced at scale and delivered around the world to help millions and millions of people. So we're excited about the potential.
So if there's one thing that excites you most today, just one of everything you have done, what is that you would, I know there's a lot of stuff, but one thing that really excites you personally?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, preventing Alzheimer's disease. That we've got to find success there, and if we don't find it,
where you started, you are continuing.
Oh yeah,
very consistent.
Persistence.
Exactly. That's very, 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 very good. Okay. I would like to just in the last couple of minutes, what would you tell the team that sits here? That like you started Avid, and in 5 years from now, what should they go to work? So in 5 years, when they are ready with their company or
I can sell. Then I can sell.
Okay.
Sell afterwards in 5 years.
Go ahead.
What would I say? To pick a problem that's hard and most people don't want to work on. When I started on Alzheimer's, it was kind of a graveyard, and diagnostics was also awful. And everyone would just say things like, why diagnose this disease if you can't treat it? And that kind of thinking is kind of a vicious circle of lack of progress, and you can be the ones to change that. Pick a problem where other people don't see a future, but you do see that you can change the world, and then work on that for 10, 20, 30 years.
Eric, last word. You have 20 seconds.
Keep the good work going.
Okay.
We all need it. And thanks for all
Okay.
the work that the scientists are doing, obviously, for all of us, really, for a better and healthier and longer lives. That's what they do. And that everything else is really irrelevant, actually.
Thank you both. This was amazing.
Thank you, Arie.
Thank you.